I want to tell you about the day I felt the most financially responsible I'd ever felt in my life, and how it nearly put me back into debt 3 weeks later. I had just finished saving my first $1,000, a clean, round, beautiful $1,000, sitting in a separate savings account I'd nicknamed Do Not Touch. I'd done what every finance guru on the internet told me to do. Step 1. Step 1. The Starter Emergency Fund. I remember staring at that balance on my phone and thinking, okay, I'm safe now. I finally have a cushion. My name is Victor, and I was wrong. Because 23 days later, my car's transmission gave out on the highway. The repair came to $2,400. My $1,000 safety net covered less than half of it. The rest went straight onto a credit card at 24% interest, which is exactly the trap I'd been trying to climb out of in the first place. So here's the question I want to answer today, and I've spent weeks digging through the actual numbers to do it. The famous $1,000 emergency fund rule, the one millions of people follow as gospel. Is it actually right? Or is it a number we've all been repeating for 20 years without ever checking whether the math still works? The answer surprised me. And by the end of this video, you're going to do a 3-number calculation that gives you your real emergency fund target. Yours. Yours? Let's get into it. First, we need to understand where this $1,000 number even came from. Because once you see it, the whole thing starts to make a lot more sense and a lot less sense at the same time. The $1,000 Starter Emergency Fund is most famously the first step in Dave Ramsey's baby step system. Step 1. Save $1,000 as fast as you can. Step 2. Pay off all your debt. And so on. That framework went mainstream in the early 2000s, and the book that carried it, The Total Money Makeover, came out in 2003. Sit with that date for a second. 2003. When that number was chosen, gas was around $1.50 a gallon. The median price of a used car was a fraction of what it is now. A trip to the emergency room cost a different universe of money than it does today. The $1,000 figure wasn't pulled out of thin air. In 2003, $1,000 genuinely could cover a typical minor emergency. A car repair, a busted appliance, an unexpected bill. It was a reasonable buffer for the kind of problems a normal household runs into. And I want to be fair here, because the rule was never really about the math. That's the part most people miss. The $1,000 target was a psychological tool. The whole point was to give someone who feels hopeless about money a goal they could actually hit in a month or two. A quick win, something to build momentum. And on that front, it works. Behavioral research on financial habits backs this up. If I tell you to save 6 months of expenses when you're living paycheck to paycheck, you'll quit before you start. If I tell you to save 6 months of expenses when you're living paycheck to paycheck, you'll quit before you start. If I tell you to save $1,000, you might actually do it. So as a motivational starting line, the rule is smart. The problem is what happens when people treat the starting line as the finish line. And that's exactly what most people do. Here's what bothers me. The world changed. The number didn't. It's been more than 2 decades. We've had the 2008 financial crisis. We've had a pandemic. We've had a stretch of inflation that hit levels people hadn't seen since the early 80s. Save $1,000. Save $1,000. Same number, 2003 to 2026. Let's talk about what inflation alone did to that figure, because this part is just arithmetic and it's hard to argue with. $1,000 in 2003 had the purchasing power of roughly $1,700 in today's money. Run it the other way, and it's even starker. To buy what $2003 could buy, you now need close to that $1,700 mark based on the government's own consumer price index. So even if the $1,000 rule was perfectly calibrated in 2003, just keeping pace with inflation would mean the equivalent target today is closer to $1,700. But inflation is the easy part of the story. The hard part, the part that actually broke my own emergency fund, is what real emergencies cost now. Because emergency costs haven't just risen with general inflation. Some of them have blown right past it. Let's define our terms. An emergency fund is supposed to cover an emergency. Obvious, right? But we never stop to ask what a typical emergency actually costs. We just trust the $1,000 number and move on. So I pulled the real figures. Let me walk you through the 4 most common financial emergencies that hit ordinary households and what they actually run today. Number 1. The car repair. This is the classic. For most working people, the car is how the income happens. No car, no commute, no paycheck. A major repair, think transmission, engine work, a failed timing component, routinely lands between $1,500 and $4,000. Even a moderate repair, brakes plus a couple of other issues at the same time, can clear $1,000 by itself. My transmission was $2,400. A $1,000 fund doesn't cover it. It dents it. Number 2. The medical emergency. This one is brutal in the United States specifically. The average cost of a single emergency room visit runs well over $1,000 before insurance, and even with insurance, out-of-pocket costs of $1,000 to $2,000 are completely normal once you factor in deductibles and the bills that arrive for months afterward. One ambulance ride. One unexpected scan. You're past your $1,000 before you've left the building. Number 3. The home or housing emergency. If you own, it's the HVAC system dying in July, or the water heater going, or a roof leak. A new HVAC system can run several $1,000s. A water heater replacement is often $1,000 to $2,000 installed. If you rent, it's the surprise that forces a move, the deposit, the broken laptop you need for work. Different costs, same shape. Bigger than $1,000. Number 4. The income shock. This is the one that isn't a single bill, it's the absence of bills getting paid. You lose your job, your hours get cut, your contract doesn't renew. Now the emergency isn't one expense. It's every expense with nothing coming in to meet it. And this is where the $1,000 number stops being merely inadequate and starts being almost a joke. Because the average American household spends well over $5,000 a month. $1,000 buys you about 5 or 6 days. So put it all together, the most common emergencies people actually face start at around $1,500 and climb from there. The rule tops out at $1,000. There's a gap. And that gap is exactly where the credit card debt gets born. Now you might be thinking, okay, Victor, but surely most people have more than $1,000 saved anyway. Surely this is theoretical. I wish it were. Here's the data, and this is the part that genuinely keeps me up at night. The Federal Reserve runs a survey every year called the Survey of Household Economics and Decision-Making. It's one of the most reliable snapshots we have of how Americans are actually doing with money. And one of the questions it asks is brutally simple. If you had an unexpected $400 expense, how would you pay for it? For years, around a third of American adults have said they could not cover a $400 emergency with cash or its equivalent. They'd have to borrow, put it on a card and carry the balance, sell something, or simply not pay it. $400. Not $4,000. $400. So when we argue about whether the emergency fund target should be $1,000 or $1,700 or 3 months of expenses, we have to be honest that a huge chunk of the population isn't even at the starting line. And that's exactly why a low, achievable first goal matters so much. I'm not here to trash the idea of a small starter fund. I'm here to tell you the small starter fund was never supposed to be where you stop. The danger is the feeling the $1,000 gives you. That false sense of, I'm safe now. Because the moment you feel safe, you stop building. That false sense of, I'm safe now. Because the moment you feel safe, you stop building. That false sense of, I'm safe now. Because the moment you feel safe, you stop building. And then the transmission goes. Let me say the thing that I think is the actual core of this whole problem. A single fixed number can't be the right emergency fund for everyone because no two people have the same emergencies. Think about it. $1,000 means something completely different to a single person renting a small apartment with a paid-off used car than it does to a parent of 3 with a mortgage and a 15-year-old SUV that's one pothole away from the scrapyard. Same $1,000. Wildly different level of protection. Your emergency fund shouldn't be anchored to a number some author picked in 2003. It should be anchored to your life, to your actual monthly expenses and your actual risks. This is the shift I want you to make today. Stop asking, how much does the rules say I need? Start asking, how much does my life actually cost to defend? Those are different questions, and only one of them has the right answer for you. Stop asking, how much does the rule say I need? Start asking, how much does my life actually cost to defend? Those are different questions, and only one of them has the right answer for you. Let's replace the broken rule with something that actually fits. Here's the system I built for myself after the transmission incident, and it comes down to 3 numbers and 3 tiers. Here's the system I built for myself after the transmission incident, and it comes down to 3 numbers and 3 tiers. Here's the system I built for myself after the transmission incident, and it comes down to 3 numbers and 3 tiers. Grab your phone because you can do this in about 2 minutes. Tier 1. The real starter fund. Instead of a flat 1,000, your starter fund should equal your single largest likely emergency. For most people, that's either a major car repair or an insurance deductible, whichever is higher. For most people, that's either a major car repair or an insurance deductible, whichever is higher. For a lot of households, that lands somewhere between $1,500 and $3,000. The logic is simple. Your first emergency fund should be able to absorb your most probable emergency without touching a credit card. That's the entire job. So number 1, write down your most likely single emergency. Car repair, medical deductible, whatever's biggest. That's your Tier 1 target. Tier 2, the income buffer. This is the one almost nobody builds, and it's the one that actually saves you when life goes sideways. This is where you move from I can handle one bad bill to I can survive a bad month. The target here is 1 full month of your essential expenses. Not your fun budget. Not your fun budget, your survival number. Rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, minimum debt payments, transportation. Add those up. That total is your Tier 2. For the average household, this is going to be a few $1,000s. And yes, that's a lot more than 1,000, and that's the point. Tier 3. The full safety net. This is the classic 3 to 6 months of expenses you've heard about, and here's how to know where you land in that range. If you have a stable job, dual income in the household, and skills that are easy to re-employ, lean toward 3 months. If you have a single income, irregular pay, you're self-employed, or you work in an industry that's getting reshaped by automation, lean toward 6 months or more. Your stability decides your number. So that's the formula. Tier 1, your biggest single emergency. Tier 2, 1 month of survival expenses. Tier 3, 3 to 6 months depending on how stable your income really is. And here's how you use it. You don't try to do all three at once because that's overwhelming and you'll quit, which is the exact mistake the original $1,000 rule was designed to prevent. You stack them. Hit Tier 1 first. That's your quick win, your momentum. Same psychology as the old rule, just with a number that actually matches reality. Then, while you're paying down high-interest debt, you slowly build toward Tier 2. And once the expensive debt is gone, you finish Tier 3. The genius of the original rule was the quick win. We're keeping that. We're just pointing it at a target that won't collapse the first time something breaks. Quick but important. Where you keep this money matters almost as much as how much you save. Do not keep your emergency fund in your regular checking account because if you can see it next to your spending money, you'll spend it. And please don't keep it in cash in a drawer, losing value to inflation every single month. Keep it in a high-yield savings account that's separate from your daily bank. The reason is twofold. One, it's still instantly accessible, usually a 1 or 2 day transfer, which is fine for an emergency. Two, a good high-yield account pays you meaningfully more interest than a standard savings account, so your safety net is actually fighting inflation instead of quietly losing to it. The separation also adds just enough friction that you won't raid it for a sale you saw online. Out of sight, out of spending range, still there when the transmission goes. I want to close on the thing that changed how I think about all of this. For years I treated the emergency fund like a chore, a box to check. Save the $1,000, move on, feel responsible. And that framing is exactly why I got caught out. I was optimizing for the feeling of being safe instead of for actually being safe. An emergency fund isn't a trophy you earn once. It's a living number that should grow as your life gets more expensive and more complicated. When you get a raise, your Tier 2 grows. When you have a kid, your tiers grow. When you buy a house, they grow again. The number is supposed to move because your life moves. The $1,000 rule isn't evil. It was a good idea for a specific moment, and it's helped a lot of people take their first step. But a first step was never meant to be the whole staircase. If you've been carrying that $1,000 number around as your definition of safe, I want you to put it down today and replace it with your number. The one you just calculated. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Because the goal was never to hit a figure from a 2003 book. The goal is to make sure that the next time life sends you a $2,400 surprise, you pay it from your savings and feel nothing. No panic. No credit card. No starting over. That's what financial security actually feels like. Not a round number. A buffer that's built for your life. If this changed how you think about your safety net, do me a favor and figure out your Tier 1 number before you close this video. Right now. Don't let it become one of those things you'll get to later, because later is usually the day the car breaks down. And if you want the next piece of this, the exact steps to start investing once your emergency fund is handled, I made a video that walks through how to start with as little as $100. It's the natural next move after your safety net is solid, and I'll link it right here. I'm Victor. I'll see you in the next one.